Good evening, Chicago. I'm Darrious Hilmon, along with special guest co-host Hugo Balta, and this is Chicago Newsroom 2.0.
This week, Sufjan Sohail and Adrian Segura are back at the roundtable to discuss efforts to ban hemp sales, impose teen curfews, and resist Mayor Johnson's hand-picked choice for CEO of the Chicago Housing Authority.
Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities Executive Director Dr. Clinton Boyd returns to the newsroom to discuss his organization's newly released study, Blueprint for Transformation: 8 Pathways to Equity and Justice for Black Men.
Friend Health CEO Wendy Thompson joins us to talk about the organization's new state-of-the-art community health center in the back of the yard.
And Crain's notable Black leaders, Dr. Gwendolyn Oglesby Odom, Wati Scathings, Krista Hamilton, and Kelwin Harris, return for our annual year-end review roundtable.
We've put together an incredible hour of hyper-local news and information that matters to Chicagoans.
And it all starts right now.
This week on the Roundtable, we're unpacking 3 fast-moving political stories shaping power, policy, and public safety in Chicago. First, an unexpected development at the Chicago Housing Authority. CHA Board Chair Matthew Brewer has reportedly told federal HUD officials that the board does not recommend Mayor Brandon Johnson's ally, former Alderman Walter Burnett, to serve as the agency's next CEO. It's an unusual public split, raising questions about governance, transparency, and the mayor's influence over key appointments. Second, a city council committee has advanced a measure to ban hemp products citywide, despite strong objections from Mayor Johnson and local business groups. Supporters say the products are unregulated and unsafe. Opponents argue the ban is overbroad and economically damaging. And third, Alderman Brian Hopkins is preparing to introduce what he calls a compromise ordinance, giving the Chicago Police Department expanded authority to declare temporary teen curfews during high-risk periods. Supporters say it will help prevent large-scale disturbances. Critics warn it could lead to profiling and deepen tensions between police and youth. Now, joining me to help break it all down are roundtable regulars Sufjan Sohail, Chair of the Cook County Commission on Human Rights, and Adrian Segura, founder and CEO of the Luminary Collective and CanTV's Chief Education Reporter. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Sufjan, let's start with you. And the CHA board rejecting Burnett's recommendation. What does this mean when the CHA board chair directly tells HUD, hey, you know what? We don't recommend mayor's preference for the candidate. How rare is this type of public disagreement?
Very rare. I would think that usually a city together presents someone to lead an organization like this, and it's showing a big split between what the mayor wants and what's best from the perspective of the CHA board. It shows a lack of transparency, and I think that's been a common theme that we've seen over the last couple of weeks when we've been talking about City of Chicago issues, and it raises even more alarms that despite interviewing and having over 100 people apply and 5 finalists and even 2 great candidates that were submitted to the mayor's office, he chose his ally and supporter. And it leaves me with a sour taste in my mouth of why is this happening? Why can't we just follow these proper policies and pick the best person to lead this organization?
Adrian, let's talk about, is this about Walter Burnett specifically? Or is this a broader push for more independence from the mayor on housing governance?
It's a good question. I'd say to your kind of combining your first question and this one, like we're actually seeing this unfold with the superintendent selection process as well. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's not an anomaly or an isolated incident. I do think we're starting to see this kind of like track record, and it gets to what you're talking about, like this push for independence. A lot of these bodies that are responsible ultimately for delivering services to Chicagoans are having to weigh the weight and the frustration of political appointments that sometimes may bypass a process that they've already agreed to. And so I do think part of it is preserving independence. But I would also say like there are other vacancies that we're seeing very similarly kind of like unfold in the public space. And so I would say this has probably happened before, someone that's worked in prior administrations. It just hasn't happened as publicly as what we're seeing unfold right now.
Yeah, and now we have the mayor trying to advance the ball, so to speak, down the field, and time after time being hit or being held. This time with the city council, when we're talking about the hemp ban, the city council is moving forward with the hemp ban, even though the mayor is opposed to it. What does this signal about the mayor, and is it about him being a weak leader?
I struggle with the notion around a weak leader. I do think that part of it is maybe his policies or his positions or his process are not popular with the people he needs to co-govern with. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a weakened leader. And I say that as someone that's worked and served in government as well. Like it can be really difficult when you're trying to advance the right decision with the information you have in front of you. I would say what this is showing us too is there is some seeds of this mistrust that are being sown and are growing. And frankly, with that too, like alder people in particular, might have questions that they feel that they're not getting responses from the city or from the leadership that are adequate. And so this is them also potentially taking the reins on their end.
No. Now, people who are supporting the ban say it's unsafe, and business owners are saying this is threatening hundreds of jobs. Sufyan, where is give us some clarity of where we are in regards to these two specific camps sort of having this tug of war?
Great question. I'm a hemp user, and I think it's great that I can walk to a local convenience store and buy it. But at the same time, I was talking with Adrian in the back and learned about the alarms it's raising of the easy access, especially for our youth who are able to go in and purchase it with very little regulations in place. I think the problem is, on this side, I agree with the mayor of just banning it completely and then figuring it out afterwards. I don't think it's the right way to go. It's how do we roll out proper administrative oversight? How do we regulate it in a safe way that it can be used? We don't want it to open up pathways on the gray and black markets where we can't have as much control and regulation over the product. I just feel, to your earlier question also, and to Adrian's comments, is the mayor doesn't seem to be as effective as building coalitions, important coalitions across the city to push forward his agenda and his work. And we've seen it with the budget, we've seen it with some other things. And time after time, there just seems to be a big public disagreement on so many of the things that he's trying to push forward to, which just creates chaos and allows us more fruitful conversations on Chicago Newsroom.
Yeah. And when I mentioned about being a weekend leader, it was more in regards to what we're talking about the city council and the support or lack thereof that the mayor is getting. Let's continue talking about young people, because I want to talk about the Hopkins CPD teen curfew ordinance. They're talking about implementing a curfew during high-risk times. Is this a good compromise, a thoughtful middle ground, so to speak, or just another version of over-policing youth?
The civil rights attorney in me says it's another incident of over-policing youth. I feel rather than just have these bans and targeting bans and I wanted to look more closely into who is it that we're targeting. Why aren't we investing more for them to have places to go and hang out and be in? Why are we creating these opportunities for violence? Why aren't we addressing some of the root challenges that some of these teens and youth are facing that are resulting in some of these horrible things happening, rather than just saying bans, right? And what's it going to look like in enforcement, right? Who's going to be enforced, who's not going to be enforced for some of these rules? So I think that they're not really thinking through the broader picture of it. They see a problem that they want to put a Band-Aid on, rather than we have some systemic issues that our teens and youth are facing, and let's address the root causes of some of those.
Now, another concern that I have in regards to the curfew is profiling. And we've seen time and time again that again, the intent doesn't match the impact. So I get the intent is to keep people safe, but let's talk, Adrian, about what are the safeguards in order not to profile young Black and brown youth?
We're in a city where bulk of our youth identify as youth of color, and I think it's going to be really difficult to not profile. I think similarly, I was on this show a few months back talking about the teen takeovers downtown. This, I think, is in direct response to much of that. And I'd say, like, my push then was, talk to the youth, co-design what the process could look like, bring them into the decision making, and help have them be part of the solution. Otherwise, you run the risk of continuing to over-police and or use the same approach over and over again. And what we've seen is that approach doesn't work. It over-criminalizes our youth, specifically young men of color. It is actually, from an enforcement perspective, really difficult to enforce. And three, it actually doesn't solve for any, like if you're hoping to limit a curfew for when teens are out, they'll just find other ways in other spaces, because at the end of the day, we've all been teenagers, we've all been adolescents, like you're gonna find a way to hang out with your friends. And so I think part of it is, again, like defaulting to one method. And I don't think we've done enough exploring of solutions specifically with people who are proximal to the challenges themselves.
I want to go back to, I have another question in regards to what we were talking about, the hemp ban. If enacted, Adrian, how would this ban be enforced? And what unintended consequences might it create?
I mean, so Sufyan started to talk about this a little bit. I think the reality is people will find another way to access these products. And we can choose to go the regulation route where we know that the products are being sold. Obviously, there's a revenue stream that comes out of it, but then there's also like the regulation piece so that we can set some clear guardrails. If you have an all-out ban, folks would just find another way to market these products and get them out. And then you lose the tax benefit for it, you lose the sales benefit, and you lose real power and regulation. And so I do think it's a short-sighted approach to a more complex solution. I think we need a little bit more time to figure out what those details are going to look like.
Yeah. We've got a couple of minutes left, Sufyan. I wanted to go back to the conversation about CHA board rejecting Burnett's recommendation. How might this impact the CHA's credibility with federal partners at a moment when housing instability and homelessness at our crisis level citywide?
I think it's crisis level nationwide, right? I think I saw a post where there's 6 empty houses for every homeless person in America, and who's controlling these houses, like private equity. Like there's such a disconnect between what's able and what we're able to do with those who are really needing the support services of our government and our communities. And I think that this disconnect between the mayor and CHA that's happening right now makes us look really weak from the eyes of HUD, and that they will not want to invest and support the city of Chicago in addressing our crisis of addressing houselessness and supporting our most vulnerable communities. And I think it goes back to, I feel our electeds often stop thinking about those who most need the support and get too wrapped up in the politics of the issues and favors and how do they stay in power and control, rather than centering those who are relying on them and leaning on them for the aid that they truly need.
Yeah, and you mentioned housing, absolutely right. It's a national crisis. Do you think that the emphasis should be on affordable housing? Because often when I've spoken to members of the community and organizations that are working with the community, there's also mental wellness. There's also, of course, the ability to get a job, to be able to self-sustain. What goes hand in hand in solving for the housing crisis that we have? What should be a two-pronged approach to it?
To your point, I don't think it's only a two-pronged approach. I think it's a multi-pronged approach, right? All of these things are connected, from crime and violence to education to job security, food insecurity, homelessness. We can't just think that we address one and provide more affordable housing, it's going to solve all the problem, but the mental health, the actual health, all of these things, we have to be able to address them all at the same time to give holistic support to our communities in need.
Yeah. Adrian, going back to our conversation in regards to the curfew, we've been living for the better part of this year with ICE agents, Border Patrol, the threat of the National Guard, in a year where public order is a major voter concern. In regards to the curfew debate and safety, what does this politically signal? What does this tell voters in regards to perhaps the tone deafness of our elected officials?
I mean, I think that's exactly what it tells you. It tells you that they're not listening. It says that at this moment in time when we are being over-policed, when we see, raids that are arresting citizens, non-citizens alike, for their beliefs, for what they're standing for, I think adding an additional layer on top of that guess what? More policing feels like it misses the moment that we're in.
Yeah. Adrian, Sufyan, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. Always a pleasure to speak to you, and happy holidays.
You too.
On the other side of the break, Executive Director of Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities, Dr. Clinton Boyd, joins Darrious to discuss a new report, Blueprint for Transformation, 8 Pathways to Equity and Justice for Black Men. Stay with us. I'm Hugo Balta. Join me for the 50 Voices of a Nation, an hour-long journey across the U.S. From rural towns confronting change to bustling cities driving innovation, we'll hear how life is unfolding under the Trump administration. Tune in December 18th at 7 p.m. exclusively on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Hyperlocal news and critical analysis. Experience the power of community television.
We turn our attention now to a powerful new report that goes to the heart of equity, justice, and opportunity for Black men in Chicago and across the country. Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities, one of the city's leading advocates for strengthening Black families and transforming systems that too often fail them, has released an important new study titled Blueprint for Transformation, 8 Pathways to Equity and Justice for Black Men. It's both a diagnosis and a roadmap, a clear-eyed look at the structural barriers Black men face, from economic exclusion to criminalization to the lack of meaningful pathways to health, housing, and healing, and a bold vision for how our institutions can and must change. Guiding this work is Dr. Clinton Boyd, the Executive Director of FFHC, a nationally respected scholar practitioner and an advocate. Dr. Boyd has spent his career elevating the lived experiences of Black fathers and pushing for policies that create stability, dignity, and justice for Black families. Dr. Boyd, brother, welcome back to the newsroom. It's always a pleasure sitting in conversation with you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you again, and I really look forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, you're doing important work that matters to me personally, but should matter to all of us in the sound of our voice today. So let's jump in. Let's start with the why of it all. What inspired you and your organization to create this blueprint, and why do you feel that this moment demanded a new framework for how we support Black men here in Chicago and beyond?
Yes, so it's important to note that the Blueprint for Transformation is really a continuation of work that we've engaged in over the past several years.
That you presented on our show so much.
Yes, so back in April, Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities, in partnership with Equity and Transformation, released our report called Breaking the Chains, Reclaiming Wealth, Power, and Dignity for Black Men. It was a comprehensive report that talked about the economic realities of Black men and fathers here within Chicago. And it was a comprehensive and dense report that also included a slew of policy recommendations. Sure. And so we felt that it was only right for us to make sure that those policy recommendations received their own level of treatment. And that's what resulted in us creating the Blueprint for Transformation, which really elevates many of the recommendations that we introduced in the Breaking the Chains report.
Oh, that's important to note. So this report, this expansion, it outlines 8 pathways from economic opportunity to justice reform. This is almost like asking you to choose your favorite child, but I'm going to do it anyway. Which pathway in your work has emerged as the most urgent or foundational in your research, and why?
Yeah, so as noted, we introduced these 8 pathways to equity and justice for Black men in the context of the Blueprint for Transformation policy report. But the one that I feel is the most foundational is the first recommendation, which is entitled Build Wealth, Not Just Wages. And it's important for us to have that conversation about wealth inequality, and what it looks like for us as a community to accumulate wealth, because wealth is really the material expression of security, dignity, and possibility. And for us as a community, we've historically been deprived of opportunities to accumulate wealth. And once we've gained access to it, we've lost it through both brutal and sophisticated means. And so it's important for us to really unpack the necessity of why it's important to do work around wealth accumulation. Because even when you look at some of the statistics nationally, Black households have roughly $1 million less wealth than white households. When you look at it in Chicago, half of Black families in Chicago have zero wealth, whereas the typical white family has roughly $210,000 worth of wealth. If we're talking about Black men nationally, at the median, we have about $10,000 in wealth, which is 8 times less than what the average white male has. And this isn't the result of individual failure. It's the result of intentional policies that have stripped us of the opportunity to accumulate wealth.
One of the themes that you elevate, and we talk about a lot here as part of our case for existence, and that is the importance of narrative.
Oh, yeah.
How society perceives and portrays Black men. We see it every day. How does changing that narrative connect in your mind and your research to measurable changes for Black families and communities?
Yeah. Well, first, it's important to acknowledge that narrative is a form of power. You know, narrative is what alters public perceptions. Narratives influence public policy. Narratives influence the flow of resources that either go into a community or come out of a community. And therefore, we have to be incredibly mindful of who controls the narratives. And when we think about Black men in this country, historically, the dominant narrative attached to us has been one of distortion and also deficiency.
Yeah.
And for us, it's very important to correct the narrative, because even when you look at the research again, Black fathers across the nation are actually more likely to be involved in the lives of their children compared to fathers of any other racial or ethnic group. That's an empirically proven fact based upon a CDC report. We read to our children more often than our counterparts from other racial and ethnic groups. We're more likely to support the emotional development of our children in comparison to fathers from any other racial or ethnic group. And we are just more likely to support the unique developmental needs of our children who are growing up in a society that devalues Blackness. And so it's important for us to recognize that we have a very special role to play, and that's what the research brings to bear. And therefore, we need to take control of our narrative and put forth a new one that is centered on the foundation of truth.
Some of the recommendations in your report are policy-driven, others are community-driven. Where do you see the greatest opportunity for partnership, especially with city agencies, employers, philanthropy, and organizations like ours?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's important to note that FFHC as an organization, we believe in self-help and self-determination. And so when I think about the greatest opportunity first starts within our community. And that means that we have to find ways to unite the community around what our enlightened and intelligent self-interest is. And so we have to have more intentional conversations about what it is we want for our community that is actually going to be beneficial for the community as a whole. And once we have those conversations, then we're in a position to negotiate with external stakeholders, if it's government, if it's employers, if it's the philanthropic community, from a place of power opposed to a place of dependency. And so that's something that I feel is most important as we think about how to take many of the recommendations that we introduce in the Blueprint for Transformation policy agenda and think about how do we get it enacted. We have to start with self, and then once we know what we're collectively advocating for, we put pressure on those power brokers to give us what we rightfully deserve, because what we're asking for is steeped in justice.
And not unreasonable. If there is one action, one first step that you would urge viewers watching our program tonight, that you would urge leaders watching our programs, one step to take after reading the report, what would that one first step look like? What would it be?
I mean, fund prevention and not punishment. That's also one of the recommendations that we discuss in the report, because there's a tendency to invest public dollars and resources after the harm has been conducted, whereas there's an opportunity to shift those resources further upstream to prevent families from being in positions of hardship to begin with. And one of the ways in which we can fund prevention and not punishment is to also invest in fathers.
How about that?
Yeah.
On that very profound, simple truth, I'm going to thank you once again, Dr. Boyd. It is always a pleasure. You know this. You and I have had conversations offline. Such a supporter of your work, such an advocate of the continued truth-telling that is research-based work that you and fathers, families, and healthy communities are doing. Every opportunity we have to bring you here to share this, we are at an important time in our shared history, and we've got to start having these conversations directly and more often. So thank you very much. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Our pleasure. On the other side of the break, I'll be joined by a phenomenal group of notable Black leaders to discuss the good, the bad, and the sublime moments that made 2025 a year we're not soon to forget, even if you try. Stay with us.
I'm Watisse Gathings, inviting you to tune into Sisters Talking, a monthly program that brings a cross-generational group of Black women together, creating a safe embrace space for honest, fearless discussion about the issues and challenges and opportunities for growth experienced by Black women. Join the conversation on CanTV Cable Channel 19 or stream online at cantv.org or the CanTV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Here at Chicago Newsroom 2.0, we're ending the year the best way we know how, with honesty, some humor, and just a little bit of shade. 2025 has been a year of twists, turns, breakthroughs, breakdowns, and more than a few you can't make these up moments. And to help us make sense of it all as best we can, from the good to the bad to the downright ridiculous, we are welcoming back 4 incredible leaders who never shy away from truth-telling, who love this city deeply, and who bring brilliance and personality every single time they show up. Dr. Gwendolyn Oglesby Odom, healthcare leader, community advocate, fearless voice for equity. Watisse Gathings, CEO and powerhouse strategist shaping the next generation of civic leadership. She laughed when I said it. Krista Hamilton, CEO and tireless champion for youth, families, and possibility. And Kelwin Harris, urban planner, policy thinker, and one of the sharpest cultural commentators in this here city. Together, these notable Black leaders have seen Chicago at its best and at its most Chicago-esque. Leaders, welcome back to the newsroom. I've been looking forward to this.
You made
since
me feel so good.
My God, today. Okay, listen, y'all know I love and appreciate all of our guests, but y'all know, y'all, my people, you have been here before, and we find ourselves at the end of a year, as we did just last year. What had happened was. So I'm going to start with what I hope will be as positive as one can be. We'll see where it goes from there, Krista. What was the moment in 2025, big or small, that actually made you say, you know what? Maybe we're going to be okay after all. I'm going to start with the positive person. Dr. Quinn, I'm going to pick the person. Dr. Quinn.
Darrious, in your opening, you talked about breakthrough. And so I want to highlight a breakthrough you may not be aware of. So Johns Hopkins Chemo Cancer Center in April of 2025 developed a liquid biopsy. What this liquid biopsy will be able to do is detect cancer through a blood sample. Right? So no longer a need for MRIs, right? Which will decrease disparities in our community because how many people could really afford it? It could detect it before people even have any symptoms because you're carrying fragments of tumors in your blood. So to be able to use AI, they came up with this AI algorithm in a blood sample. So I'm super, super excited about where AI has taken us on that front and the breakthroughs that will help bring equity to healthcare. So for me, that was a shining point. Because we know so many of our people die because they're misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, inability to get access to screenings, or downright scared, right? If you just need a blood draw, that's easier than saying, I need you to take off work to get an MRI, right? You just need to run in and get a quick blood draw. It's simple, it's easy, so it's called a liquid biopsy. So stay focused and looking out for that.
You'll be back on telling us more about it. Okay, who wants to follow that? What you got? What made you believe we had hope? This is the start.
Look,
Kelvin, what you got?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me back. This is always a joy to end the year with all of you. For me, just kind of looking broadly, the thing that almost surprised me as well was the impact of the Target boycott when you look at retail, right? Target stores. So, with DEI, you're seeing that roll back. We've seen, companies like Target, close stores in Black communities. You look at Chatham, you look at other parts of the city. But to see the entire country come together around our Black buying power, right? And to really start to own that and see that, and then to see, the CEO have to step down, to see, the foot traffic in those stores, be drastically reduced, the company losing billions of dollars. I mean, for the first time, probably since like the civil rights movement, have we seen, our community come together and say, no, we're not going to take it anymore. And not just, it shouldn't just be Target, it should include Walmart, Amazon.
I have a list.
I have, and you know how Black people love Target, Target.
We gave her a nickname. You love something when you nickname it.
Right.
Yeah.
It was cousin, right? It was cuz Target,
But I hate to do this to you. That's wonderful, but it probably leads to what will be question 2 through 7. Then Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we didn't hold it together quite the same on those things. But I love that.
And you've seen celebrities also kind of come out and not hold that integrity and hold ranks. And so and those people should be called into account. But overall, fundamentally, just seeing that really hardened me.
It did for me as well. Okay, I already know who I want to throw this question to first. What storyline, trend, or public moment this year had you shaking your head thinking, I know we can do better than this? Krista, thoughts?
Thank you for having me back. I love being with this group. For me, it was the SNAP benefits.
My God. You were here talking about that on our air.
I was here talking about that. I know we can do better than that. It put the country in a frenzy. Weeks before Thanksgiving, people didn't know what they were going to do. So I'm happy that they were restored, but just a setback from those weeks
and the trauma
of it. We know we can do better than that. So hopefully we never have to see that again.
Even though the SNAP benefits have been restored, there is still impact because of what initially happened. So I want to applaud my organization for donating $1 million across our enterprise. 305,000 of that came here to Illinois, to DuPage County, Cook County, Kane County, and Lake County. Chicago Food Depository was one of our partner recipients that received funding. So even though they brought the benefits back, we still felt like we needed to come behind that and help support these organizations that suffered during that time.
Yeah, I think that may be the lesson. What you got, Juantis?
Oh,
your eye just went up. Okay.
This year kind of turned us every way but loose. But I think in addition to the SNAP benefits, I wish we could just leave the big, beautiful bill and the Epstein files and everything associated with this current administration behind. Because it's really starting to wear the people thin.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that. Once the FO moments are finished, then we can leave them behind. Oh, I need them to burn.
We do need to finish the job. Yes. We have to finish the job, that's for sure.
Okay. Anybody want to jump in on that? What you got, brother?
Well, kind of a double-edged sword, but of course, the elephant in the room is ICE and what we saw, in our communities and in our streets happening to our neighbors, right? You look at, really the president creating a theater of Chicago in a reality TV show fashion, with TV cameras and, what happened with the building in South Shore, kind of taking over an entire building and, having TV cameras there for the whole ride, looking at that, it's absolutely deplorable. But on the flip side, right, right? It was the response, from our
out
leadership.
Chicago.
Which takes us back to
Chicago
because I
showed
was in
out.
New York
People
some
went out
weeks
into
ago.
the streets, people standing
Yeah.
up saying, no kings, we're not going to
Yeah.
take this anymore. And again, it's just like I was saying about Target. I mean, saying, hey, we're not going to be disrespected, and we're going to come together to use our collective power.
Yeah.
So I think this is a year where we saw a lot of madness, but we also exercised our power in a different way.
In New York a few years ago, I was in New York a few weeks ago, and I was having dinner with some friends after a show, and folks from around the country went, "Yeah, Chicago, that's and I was like, this is a weird feeling. My adopted home, where they're like, what you did set the benchmark of what needs to be happening in all the other cities. And these were folks from Detroit and LA who were looking to this city and what is one of the darkest moments of how this city came together, from whistles, our mayor and governor, for
Saying
all
the
of the
same
challenges,
thing.
saying the same, and maybe the lesson there is to learn how powerful it can be when you all can align.
That's right.
For this city. But continue, you were about to
No,
add.
I was going to say my colleagues in North Carolina face what we face here in Chicago, and their community-based organizations and others took from our playbook here. And so Chicago really set the standard. We did the best practice for how to deal with ICE, and I'm proud of the work that happened with community, right? It was community that came together too and stood together.
And all levels.
Yeah, on all levels. So it was great to see the community rise to the occasion and really stand up and support one another.
Okay, so far so good. If you could delete, if you could delete just one moment from the public record this year, what's getting erased and why, Krista?
Oh, that was a tough one for me.
Because you got so many.
I got so many of them. But, going back to the ICE, the way people were handled. I hate that for our country and our city, to think that people that we care about, a sanctuary city, we had to stand back and allow this to happen. And so that was something I wish we could have erased from history.
The whole dehumanization of it.
The whole dehumanization of how people were handled, how families were broken apart.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, just kind of, doubling down on that. I would also add there was that moment in August where the gerrymandering started to take place in Texas. And you had all those lawmakers come to Chicago and come to Illinois. I was heartened and I was glad that they found sanctuary here. But when you look at the Republican playbook specifically, like it's setting a troubling trend, right? When you start to look at this new racial gerrymandering that could be replicated in other places. So just been watching that very closely, and that's something that I wouldn't erase the fact that they looked at Illinois as a place to find safe haven, like you were talking about our leadership, but also just that's something that I'm watching very closely that doesn't get replicated.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd want to go back and delete the government shutdown. I think a lot of families and a lot of people were hurt, and I think that the Democratic Party did not hold the line, so it feels all for naught. I wish we would have allowed people to not have their lives disrupted if we weren't going to stick it out to win the war. So I think that's a moment that could be deleted from history.
That's fair. Go ahead.
Fawn Weaver and what she's facing. I wish I could delete that, because the legacy that she's trying to bring back for Uncle Nearest and the work that he did and how Jack Daniels received credit for it, but it was really him. And so I wish that we could delete the financial woes and challenges that she's facing, because I think her intent was good. So I wish we could delete that for her.
Wow. And here's the hopeful thing. I am a prisoner of hope. This moment is so dark and it's so public. But I am confident her journey of doing amazing things isn't over. Lessons are learned.
Yes.
There are silver linings in failure, because you were in the game.
Yeah.
So that's my hope there. But I'm with you on that. It's been painful to watch.
And
No
I
matter
saw her
what
over the summer
pieces.
on Martha's Vineyard. I went to her brunch and had a chance to see her. It's just what she really has tried to do, and knowing that you could be set up from the inside.
Yeah. Okay. We may have touched on this, but I'm just going to go on record with it. A trend, a phrase, a color, a theme,
Can I go there?
a human, or other phenomenon this year that absolutely cannot come back in 2026? Dr. Gwen.
6'7".
Oh!
That has
There it
no
is.
meaning.
I still
My
understand
grandson, I had to ask
We
my
have some
grandson,
kids
I'm
in the
like,
studio
what
laughing at you right now.
is 6'7"? My grandson was like, it means nothing. And I'm like, what do you mean? When we have slang, it means something. What is 6'7"? Nothing, Nana. It's just 6'7". So can we delete that? What is
I'm right
6'7"?
behind you. Clock it.
Clock
We
it.
can get rid of clock it.
What you got?
I'll let you.
No, go please.
Well, I mean, for me, I think the thing that we can't bring back is the Bulls losing again.
Oh, wow.
The Bulls started out. I'm gonna use a light one, okay? The Bulls started out winning their first 5 games. People were comparing them to like the 90s, three-peat team.
Let him have the stream. Go on, brother.
But yeah, we got to end this season. We got to find some way to turn this thing around.
Yeah.
Particularly with Derrick Rose getting his jersey, retired and things like that next year. So,
I'm gonna add a double down to that because as a Chicago sports fan,
that's what I wanted to get you
you know,
started.
I am still sitting on the fence, hoping what we're experiencing with our Chicago Bears is the real thing, and so them falling off the cliff and disappointing us. I hope that's a thing of the past. We're gonna go into the playoffs and have a good postseason. So we'll see.
Final question for everybody in our less than a minute left. Give us one sublime moment. Sublime experience, person, lesson this year that reminded you to breathe, to hope, to believe in your work all over again. So I did the intros of what you all are doing in addition to your titles. What's that one sublime moment, Watis?
I have to say, and not to go too political, I think that I've said at this table in particular in this very show and given my fair share of criticisms with this administration, but I have to say the feeling around violence prevention and our mayor having the opportunity to stand on the stage and talk about the reduction in gun violence we've seen across the city. I think that's something we should be proud of, but I also think that if you allow the team in Baltimore to tell the story, it's raising a cultural standard in our city. And I think having somebody talk about African-American people in particular in the city of Chicago with such dignity is something that makes me proud. And so I hope we see more of that going into next year. And I hope that we continue to see the reductions that we want to see and hopes that people will invest in people so that our neighborhoods can be safer.
Dr. Gwen.
Love that. Mine's is personal. This year, my daughter called me out the blue and said, "Hey, Mom, I've watched you over 30 years mentor other women. I want you to be my mentor. I'm going to call your executive assistant. I'm going to get on your calendar." And so when we meet, she calls me Dr. Gwen. She's very prepared and it's very professional. And so for me, that really touched my heart. It was like the best moment for me, being a leader and having your daughter to say she wants you to mentor her to become into leadership. So she's 37 now, and so I'm very proud.
Okay. Good luck, Krista.
It was the Leo school going national. America's Got Talent. Yes, it just reminded me that there's so many good things in Chicago, and we don't always get to be on the center stage in that way.
How about that?
And they were all black boys, and it just really warmed my heart. So that was wonderful.
Okay. Kelvin,
You stole mine, all right. But I'll add. We're all on the same wavelength here. The Pope from Chicago, right? Seeing that, and particularly from Dalton, I never thought I'd be so proud of Dalton. Okay, particularly with the kind of year they've had politically, but maybe something we don't want to bring into next year. But a lot of hope for Dalton, a lot of hope for Chicago, and just seeing the resurgence of just kind of love and positivity for the city around that. He's a Chicago White Sox fan, South Side fan. And just seeing the world, particularly with so much negativity coming out of Washington around Chicago, and so much hate, for our leadership, to see that from a grander level. Now, he couldn't help the White Sox win this season.
Here we go.
All right.
Okay.
But, we just having that means a lot for the city.
On all of the positive pieces of that final note, you all, Kelvin, Krista, Dr. Gwen, Watis, you are my people. I am grateful to be your friend, but I am so grateful to walk and share space in the city where you all are doing amazing, amazing things. You are always welcome here, that. We'll get back together for our quarterly on-air conversation, but in the meantime, happy holiday to all of you. Thank you. On the other side of the break, Chicago Inspector General Deborah Witzberg returns with an all-new installment of Inside Oversight. Stay with us.
CAN TV is the lens through which Chicago's stories are told, harnessing the unifying power of community television. With CAN TV on demand, immerse yourself in the richness of our city through exclusive stories and programs tailored just for you, connecting you to the heartbeats of our streets, the voices of our people, and the spirit that makes Chicago unique. Discover the strength of your community on CAN TV on demand.
For generations, government in Chicago has given people every reason to mistrust things that happen behind closed doors in City Hall. On this month's installment of Inside Oversight, Chicago Inspector General Deborah Witzberg shares some case studies from her office's work that aims to chip away at the long arc of corruption that has left Chicago at a well-earned deficit of legitimacy with Chicagoans.
For decades, Chicago's tradition of corruption, cronyism, and backroom decision-making has given residents every reason to mistrust what happens behind closed doors at City Hall. That history has created a deficit of legitimacy. Hello, I'm Deborah Witzberg, Inspector General for the City of Chicago. The Office of Inspector General works to pay down that deficit of legitimacy by shining a light into dark corners, identifying abuses of power, and strengthening systems so that they serve every Chicagoan. Every investigation, every audit, every recommendation for change is an investment in building trust in government. Trust erodes when public employees use their public positions for private gain. When people steal from the city, they rob the public of faith that government acts in the interest of the governed. We see cases across city departments. A city clerk's office employee who over years stole cash payments for city vehicle stickers, more than $150,000, before ultimately pleading guilty to computer fraud and official misconduct. A Department of Finance employee misused their access to city systems to award themselves more than $6,500 worth of unearned compensatory time. And in a criminal case related to an investigation in which OIG partnered, Alderman Ed Burke was convicted of racketeering, bribery, and extortion charges for allegedly abusing his position to solicit and extort private legal work and other benefits from companies and individuals with business before the city. Beyond the lost dollars, these cases represent breaches of public trust, where those in positions of power and authority have acted to benefit themselves and not the Chicagoans they serve. Another critical area where we can build public trust is campaign finance reform, where we work to ensure that there is no for sale sign on the door to City Hall. Over the past 3 years, OIG has dramatically expanded our proactive campaign finance enforcement by analyzing campaign contribution data and comparing it to lists of contractors doing business and seeking to do business with the city, lobbyists, elected officials, and city employees to identify improper donations. This work has resulted in the return of tens of thousands of dollars in improper contributions, with more to come. For too long, rules designed to make sure that government action was not for sale to the highest bidder were under-enforced. We've changed that, and in doing so, we are strengthening the foundation of a government people can trust. Finally, independent and unobstructed oversight is vital to any effort to foster trust in government. We've seen significant challenges in this area, including instances in which OIG investigators were denied access to city premises for unannounced inspections, despite clear municipal code provisions requiring access. One of those denials involved the mayor's so-called gift room, which was the subject of an OIG advisory on gifts accepted on behalf of the city. The mayor's office declined to let OIG investigators see those gifts and later claimed to be providing public access, but only made available a facility that was built after OIG attempted to inspect it. I often talk about metaphorical windowless rooms in City Hall. This was a literal windowless room. Far more important than the jewelry and the handbags stored in that room is the notion that effective oversight cannot come with limitations and conditions imposed by the overseen. That is no way to foster public trust. Chicago's deficit of legitimacy was generations in the making. It will take sustained, consistent work to pay it down. Every case we pursue, every dollar we recover, every rule we enforce, and every dark corner into which we shine a light is a payment against the deficit of legitimacy at which Chicago government operates and brings us closer to a government that Chicagoans deserve.
Our thanks to Inspector General Witzberg and the OIG team for continuing to advocate for Chicagoans and the critical importance of independent public oversight. On the other side of the short break, Friend Health CEO Wendy Thompson joins me to talk about her organization's new state-of-the-art community health center in Back of the Yards. Stay with us. I'm Hugo Balta. Join me for the 50 Voices of a Nation, an hour-long journey across the U.S. From rural towns confronting change to bustling cities driving innovation, we'll hear how life is unfolding under the Trump administration. Tune in December 18th at 7 p.m. exclusively on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Hyperlocal news and critical analysis. Experience the power of community television. Access to quality health care shouldn't depend on your zip code. And yet, for too many families across Chicago, that has been the harsh reality. Tonight, we're focusing on an organization working to change that story. Friend Health has built its mission around bringing compassionate, comprehensive, and community-centered healthcare to neighborhoods that have historically been overlooked. From primary care and mental health services to pediatric care, dental care, and support for chronic conditions. Friend Health is committed to meeting people where they are and treating the whole person, not just the illness. And now that mission has expanded with the opening of a brand new Friend Health Center in Back of the Yards, a state-of-the-art facility designed to provide affordable, culturally responsive care in one of Chicago's most diverse and resilient communities. The center represents not just another clinic, but a promise that every Chicagoan deserves the dignity of accessible, high-quality health care close to home. Joining us now to talk about the vision behind the expansion, what it means for families on the south and southwest sides, and how Friend Health is reshaping community wellness across Chicago is the organization's CEO, Wendy Thompson. Wendy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me here this evening.
Let's start with the mission of Friend Health, a trusted provider in Chicago's south and west sides. Tell us about how that has evolved over time in meeting the needs of the community that you serve.
Absolutely. Well, we stay core to our mission. We are here to meet the needs of the underserved. What that means is that we provide healthcare services regardless of an individual's ability to pay, regardless of their insurance status. And we attempt to meet individuals where they are. And meet them and to meet whatever needs they might have. And frankly, those have evolved. What we know now is that the need is greater than it ever has been. In addition to the chronic conditions that we see across the southwest sides of Chicago, we also see an increasing need for mental health supports with substance use disorders, and a host of enabling services from transportation, housing. And so now we're standing in the role of connecting individuals to whatever supports they need to live their healthiest lives.
Yeah, and it's a multi-pronged approach, right? It's not just one area, but multiple areas, and sometimes having to work on them simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the new investment at Front of the Yards. Why this location, and are there any specific health challenges that you're seeing in this particular neighborhood?
Sure. Well, we have supported and served the Back of the Yards community for well over a decade. And we were excited to become involved with the United Yards Project, one, because it was a community-driven effort where the community spoke up and determined what was needed. And so we viewed that as an opportunity to deepen our commitment. So we view this as a further investment and a long-term commitment to the back of the yards community. Going from 5,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet has enabled us to provide a comprehensive health center where we're having where we're able to provide more services in-house and not requiring individuals to have to go elsewhere for services that previously they had to.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, being able to serve greater numbers is meeting the need that continues to increase.
Absolutely.
And you also mentioned transportation. One of the barriers that many communities face, including insurance gaps, as well as a mistrust of the healthcare system. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Friend Health is chipping away at those barriers and meeting people, as you said, where they are?
Sure. In addition to our traditional health services, primary care, mental health, and dental, we have robust care coordination. And so these are individuals who work with patients and the community at large outside of the exam room. We meet with patients, we better understand what challenges they face, and we have a host of partnerships with organizations in housing, organizations that address needs relative to food insecurity, and also with respect to transportation. And so whatever that particular need is, we help them navigate the system, but additionally now they have another person. And what we find sometimes is that patients call and they want to talk to their care coordinator because they know that that's the person who's going to help them get the service or get the answer that they're seeking, even if they don't know what the question is at that time.
Yeah, and building those relationships, personal relationships, really helps to build trust, to go to the same person over and over again when it has to do with your health care. We started to talk a little bit about the integrated health model, right? A multi-pronged approach in holistically caring for people's health. Tell us about that integrated model with Friend Health. I mentioned primary care, behavioral health, and family services. Why is this whole person approach so critical to the work that you do?
Sure. You know, it's essential because particularly when you're serving individuals who may have been underserved previously, they may come to us for a particular condition or to address a particular issue. And through the process of providing integrative care, we determine that there are more issues, right? So everything from stress that's revealed and our ability to connect them with a behavioral health provider who is in the health center, we're able to help them with brief interventions or in some cases connect them to a behavioral health professional for longer term care. Likewise, we spoke about our care coordination services. We provide those. And we also have a subsidiary, HRDI, that has provided behavioral health services to the community for over 50 years. And with that relationship, we're able to provide everything from 24/7 crisis care to up to and including residential services for individuals who need assistance, residential services for mental health and substance use disorders.
Yeah, there's a short and long game when it comes to healthcare and working with the community, and Friend Health is absolutely leading in that space. Thank you so much, Wendy, for joining us, and welcome to CAN TV.
Yes, thank you.
As you shared, this is your first time here, the first of many.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Darrious?
That's our time for this week. Thank you to all of our guests for joining us in Conversation and Community.
And thank you, Chicago, for making space for CAN TV and Chicago Newsroom 2.0 in your busy day.
The Newsroom is taking a break for the holidays, but returns with an all-new episode on Thursday, January 8th, with special guest co-host Dr. Suzette McKinney and Threshold CEO Mark Ishog.
And come back to CAN TV next Thursday, December 18th at 7 p.m. for a special presentation of the 50 Voices of a Nation, when I travel to communities in Illinois and across the nation to uncover what motivated Americans to vote in the 2024 presidential election.
I've seen a preview of this special, Hugo. Hats off to you and the Fulcrum team. This is incredible and provocative storytelling.
And I appreciate that, Darrious, and remain grateful for CAN TV's continued partnership.
With that, from all of us here at CAN TV, we wish you a safe and happy holiday season. Until we meet again, be well and well informed.